Hello, everybody. Great to be here today. That's okay. Quick introduction. My name's Darren, as Andre mentioned. I run growth at Calendly, and I'm here today from Sydney, Australia. Has anyone traveled further than Sydney, Australia to be here? Okay, you all owe me a beer. But I lived in San Francisco for quite a while, back now in Sydney. And I joined Calendly about a year and a half ago after they acquired my startup, Hugo. Hugo was a meeting notes platform for teams. We're a PLG business, and we were focused on helping teams prepare for meetings, take notes during meetings, and action those meetings. And we got to know Tope, Calendly's CEO, really well. And we sort of formed a shared vision, and it just made too much sense. So we joined Calendly about a year ago. As I said today, I head up growth for Calendly, sitting on the marketing team. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Calendly, we're a scheduling automation platform. We make it really easy to schedule meetings. You can see a fan out there. We have 20 million users across 230 countries. 86% of the Fortune 500 use Calendly. So we're definitely a big player in the scheduling space. But what I want to talk about is product-led growth. Calendly, without a doubt, is a poster child for PLG. We sort of see ourselves, see our logo up there whenever anyone talks about PLG. And at Hugo, we're a sort of Series A stage startup. Before that, we were also built with very much having a PLG model underneath us. And there were tons of mistakes that we made, lots of learnings, for someone much later stage like Calendly. And I'm hoping to sort of navigate the startup world and a much later stage tech company to help you with how best to think about growing your business. So I'm going to talk through 5 realities of growth. Things that we got very wrong, things that we got right, and hopefully some practical takeaways. So, first reality, we all know, or many of us may have read the work of Paul Graham, the Y Combinator founder, and he's got some amazing essays out there. And one thing he said in 2013, came from this movie called Field of Dreams, was build it and they will come. Now, obviously a very, very intelligent guy who's really a forefather of our world here. That is one comment that didn't date well. 2023, I couldn't disagree more. That is absolutely not the experience we had. And it's a very different time. In 2013, for example, it was a world where building product was differentiated. The availability of cloud infrastructure and other APIs to help us build, the whole no-code movement didn't really exist. It was really tough to build a product. Fast forward 10 years, we all know building is actually not so hard to get going nowadays. There's tons of tools, tons of solutions. We can host on AWS, Azure, Google Cloud Platform very easily. That's no longer what's differentiated. And that's why Justin Kan, a very prolific investor, tweeted this 5 years ago, and this is exactly what I experienced. First-time founders are obsessed with product. Second-time founders are obsessed with distribution. I was a first-time founder at Hugo. All we cared about was product. I heard this time and time again, didn't really listen, but that is exactly the experience we had. So if you think about a typical startup release cycle, and the way most people do things, right? Firstly, you've got this idea. I've been thinking about it for a while. It's a pain I experience myself. I really want to solve this. So I go and do some soft validation. I go and talk to friends and family and others. Hey, you know how annoying it is when you're trying to build this? Or, hey, what if we could use AI to solve that? And everyone's like, yeah, that's really cool. I agree, let's do it. You should totally build that. I'll pay for that, I promise you. So with that sort of confidence, off we go. And next up, we start building. So we define how we're going to solve this, turn that idea into a bit of a solution. And either if you're lucky enough to be technical, you might start building yourself, bring on a co-founder. If you've got a little bit of cash, you might hire someone, and you start building and building and building and building. That big launch day is coming up. We've been talking about this for a year, for 18 months, for 6 months, however long it takes you to build this. and we're really starting to ramp up for this launch. How are we going to launch? We got a list of things. Maybe we'll go on Product Hunt. I'm going to post it to my network. I'm going to go back to all those friends and family and people that told me I had a great idea, and it's going to be huge. Thanks, guys. We've worked so hard for the last year. We've built this amazing product all ready for this launch. So we get it out the door. Feels great. We go and have that, that drink, and we've launched, we've released. And what happens? Growth is a total uphill battle. It's a struggle. Getting the next customer, trying to monetize them if that's your priority early on, all of those things prove really, really difficult. So what do? We realize that actually we don't think the product's going to solve the problem we thought it did. We start talking to customers and other prospects who aren't yet paying. We're trying to do this research, and we realize that, we just need this feature and that feature, less of that feature, so we go back to our rebuilding phase. And I'm still yet to acquire any meaningful customers. This is how everyone does it. This is the most common approach. This is what I'll tell every startup founder. You've probably heard time and time again, this is what I did. It's very hard to hear this and not listen to this essentially. What we should have done, and what I'm definitely doing next time around, and what I tell most people, you have an idea, let's do some real validation. If you've got an enterprise sales model, go and sign up real customers. Get them to prepay some money. Let's go and do real research. Let's go and survey 1,000 people, paying a few dollars each, via one of those platforms that lets you recruit survey participants. Let's get people to join wait lists. Let's make sure there's a real problem that people want solved. You don't know you're going to solve it the right way, sure, but at least we've got a list of people that have said to me, like, this is real, not just my friends and family and network who want to support me. Then we have to define, and how do we launch that version 0.1, that very first version? Can we build a landing page that on top of Airtable that has nothing behind it? Can we modify an existing product using a no-code tool? How can we make sure that we've got something valuable that feels real enough to validate the problem? Then we build. While we're building, not waiting for that launch, this is when I'm focused on distribution. Can I grow a market? Can I grow an audience? How do I get real people who are using this product and ready for me to sell to? And only then do we launch. After that, obviously, we're feeding back those changes. We're learning from the real market, tying in product and distribution, iterating on the product. Distribute from day one. So what I wish we knew, or what I wish we did, was one, the lightest possible weight validation of the product. Hugo was a very heavy product. We had a collaborative note editor, a bit like a Google Docs, to help you prepare for meetings. We had a ton of integrations with most project management and productivity tools. All of these things are expensive and take a lot of time to build. So we're building all of these in a vacuum without getting it out the door. How could we have done that in a lighter weight way? Finding a niche, tightly networked audience first. So this is really interesting for a product like Calendly, which is, we say our user base is very heterogeneous. We have lots of people. We have palm readers and yoga instructors through to enterprise. So it's really hard to build distribution to the whole world. How do we focus on very specific verticals? And Calendly's actually done that quite well. We started out very focused on education, financial services, SaaS, and some other key verticals first. Developing an audience before you need them. We all love the idea of building an audience. Sorry, a bit of a delay there. We all love the idea of building an audience to distribute and to sell to. It's too late when you need something from them. How do we start building that audience, offering them value before I want to start pushing my product to them? And start selling before the product's ready. Parallelize build and distribution. Finally, I'm going to talk about PLG a lot in a moment, but building growth into the product. It's very hard to layer distribution on top. You can't just tack growth onto your product if you're reliant on your product for distribution. And we're all familiar with Airbnb, but for those who have read the story, and it's a pretty incredible story, Airbnb built a page. They listed the properties that were for rent that you could stay at, of which they were out looking at these properties, taking photos, getting them there. And if you had an inquiry for a certain date to stay there, they'd be picking up the phone to the owner, to the landlord, and trying to book that manually. They validated that there's a real problem, and people did want to sleep, at your place, on your couch, in your house, before they built a complex marketplace platform. Okay, reality 2. PLG can be game-changing. As I said, Calendly is absolutely the PLG poster child. Millions and millions of people sign up for Calendly every year without us spending a cent on acquiring those particular users. But it's not perfect, and it's not for everyone. There's a lot of hype out there. Everyone talks about PLG. It's every founder or marketer's dream. But the reality is that it may be great for you and it may not be, and I'll tell you how to think about it now. So just a quick intro for those who aren't super into the PLG buzz that's been going on for some time. PLG is a growth strategy where the product itself enables you to acquire, retain, and expand your user base. So it's pretty cool. And some examples, you finish that Zoom call, you get the thank you page, and it encourages you to sign up for Zoom. Massive viral loop happening there. Typeform, I fill in my Typeform survey, and for that Typeform user who isn't paying for Typeform, all of their survey respondents on the last step get encouraged to create their own Typeform. And of course, Calendly. You schedule your meeting with Calendly. On the confirmation page, we encourage you to sign up for Calendly. Massive, massive viral loop for us. Everyone loves PLG. Why? The unit economics are amazing. I've acquired this one user, and then that user is going out and acquiring all the other users for me while I sleep. Like, how incredible. Any dollar I spent on acquiring my first user is divided or amortized across all the users that they acquire. Incredible economics. It makes my addressable market huge because they're out and the network effects of them acquiring users and so on. And growth can happen that much faster. But what we don't talk about, levels of intent are very different. So if you've come in through a piece of my content, you've spent time on my website, you've been through my onboarding, you're pretty sold at that point, that Calendly is the product for you. Now, you just go to schedule a meeting and we say sign up for Calendly. You don't even know what Calendly is. And here we are pushing you into our funnel. So the level of intent and the conversion rates can be very different. It's hard to define your audience. I have no control over who you're meeting. So the palm reader, an example of a Calendly user, or the yoga instructor, their fellow yogis who are booking in for sessions are potentially becoming Calendly customers, whether or not that's my ideal customer persona. So it's much harder to control who, the market there. Varying levels of willingness to pay goes the same way. Their yogis who are signing up may have no intent to pay for a product like Calendly or pay for any software, but they're becoming Calendly users in this example. And the thing about being completely self-serve is your whole funnel has to work perfectly. I don't have a sales team or anyone involved here who can help explain, understand, convey like I may have for acquiring that first user. So PLG is amazing economically, and there's so many great considerations, but it might not be right for you, and there definitely are drawbacks. You've got to remember, as I said, that not all products are compatible with PLG, and you may be more successful with another growth strategy or a sales-led motion. You can't tack on PLG to your product. I think this is another very common early stage mistake where I build my product, it's there, I'm now thinking about growth. How do we make our product assist us with growth? Very difficult at this point. The product's got maybe product market fit, you're solving a real problem there. You can't just bring growth in. It's got to be really baked into the product. What does growth mean for you? And I'll talk about this in a moment, but be aware of vanity growth. You can absolutely buy more users, incentivize growth and the like, but what do they convert to something that you care about? It's not all about that top of funnel growth that these sorts of viral strategies may enable. And it's definitely not set and forget. And I think that's relevant for Calendly. Calendly's 11 years old, and today we're re-questioning these fundamental assumptions and how we grow. It's one of the best viral PLG products out there, but what worked then doesn't work now. And every month, every week, we're revisiting these growth levers and thinking about how we grow. And here's examples of 9 really great companies of various ages that don't have a lot of PLG baked into their product. They're, in many cases, relying on a very traditional sales-led model. Maybe they have some incentives for referral, but they're not product-led in a true sense. They're all growing incredibly well and really well-known businesses. Some public, some private, some venture-backed, some bootstrapped. So it's not all about PLG. Okay. I'll just finish by mentioning here on this point, and this I've actually stolen from Point 9 Capital. It's a great model, and they talk about product market fit requiring product fit, distribution fit, and customer fit. We learned this really early on at Hugo. So you have to get all three of them in a perfect line to be successful. You need to have a product that has a value proposition with features that solves a problem and does it well. You need to figure out how you're going to distribute that. So what's working for us? Is it a PLG type feature with some virality? Is it having a sales team with outbound? Is there a content marketing strategy? How are we getting that in people's hands? And as I said to you at the beginning, that, in my view, is the hardest thing in 2023. And who are we distributing it to? You might have an amazing product, have a great plan to get there, but the people you're distributing it to just don't have a willingness to pay, or don't have that real deep problem, or have some other pressures at the moment. You need to figure out exactly who it is that you're selling that to, and that's your ideal customer persona. Until you've got all three of those in line, that's product market fit. That's when you're going to nail success with the product, with the means to distribute it, and the right audience to distribute it to. We didn't think about that at Hugo. Calendly's landed that very well, and to be honest, probably a lot of luck in the early days there. But that you should be thinking about all three of those things at the same time. And they're also tightly coupled anyway. Making product decisions should be based on who we're going to be distributing the product to, how we're going to be distributing it, what viral features are built into the product, and so on. Okay, so I probably sound a bit like the anti-PLG here. I'm not at all. But I think the reality is most companies have a hybrid growth model. And I quite like this breakdown from the team at Paddle. And I think you'll hear from Andrew, their CMO, a bit later. So thanks, Andrew, for letting me steal this. The reality is, when you look at most companies, they're either moving up market. So that's a bit like Calendly, Slack, Figma, Atlassian. We start in a self-serve way with product-led means to acquire customers. And as we move up market, we need an enterprise sales motion to help us acquire those bigger customers. Very, very common. Moving down market, you still see it a little bit less, but these are products that were sales-led and they become self-serve, and they start building more of these product-led motions into their distribution. So you've got your Amplitudes, your Vidyards, MongoDB, lots of others, and then combined. And I can't think of any really good examples, to be honest, of those that have gone to market with both distribution models. Most of the time it's come later. So what should you be going with if you're building a business or advising a business? Depends on the complexity of your product. Some products are just too complex to acquire in a self-serve way. They're just never going to be successful at implementing or understanding on their own. Some categories are too immature. If I'm building a new category, something that's not well understood, expecting users to understand your value proposition based on a few website pages is just not going to happen. You need an account executive to do discovery, to talk through how they might, the value and why they need it. Customization, I should talk about how well you understand your ICP, your ideal customer persona. If you don't have a perfect sense of who you're selling to, you want to be thinking about a growth model where you can get to know them and work out the best way to distribute to them. What I was going to say was the customization. If each customer is very different, self-serve is not going to be the way to go. And who actually are you selling to? And we learned this a lot at Hugo. So we had very much a bottoms-up sale. We'd have people who late at night would get frustrated with that meeting that was a waste of time and went nowhere. They'd go and sign up for Hugo. And that's great. That's self-serve. They'd invite a few teammates, and that's our product-led growth machine working. But the decision makers, the people who were saying, you know what, we're going to roll out Hugo as a meeting platform for our whole company, weren't the users. And that becomes really tricky. How do you do in a self-serve way? You flip up. And that's something else to think about. Are your users the people who you're actually selling to? Now, product-led sales, I'll just touch on for a moment. PLS, a bit of a newer acronym, but been happening for a long time. This is the go-to-market approach that relies on existing users of your product to drive revenue. We love it because at this point, you're taking people who are using your product, they're becoming leads, often called PQLs, product qualified leads, and they're going to sales. So for those who are building an enterprise sales model and moving up market, this is where this is the way that most are doing it. And here's an email from one of our account executives at Calendly, reaching out based on some activity that a self-serve user had taken in the app, encouraging them to chat. Okay, second last reality, the blessing and curse of growth experimentation. So I have an experimentation team that I work with at Calendly, and it's amazing. We get to try lots of things and figure out what works and get better all the time at converting customers, essentially. For an early stage company, I think this is a really big danger. Growth experimentation in the early days means seeing what works. You have no idea. The advice that you get from whoever it is only relevant to the extent they built the exact same product for the exact same customer at the exact same time. And you have to just try it. What worked for them may not work for you. But this doesn't mean building out a very complex growth experimentation machine. So the role of growth in an early stage company is really just about placing bets and trying to get through them as quickly as you can to figure out what's going to work. But don't get too mathematical. I'd be keeping track of all your bets, but I wouldn't be trying to achieve statistical significance and really running like a growth experimentation machine in the early days. What's going to work? Let's just try stuff and see what happens. Last reality, and this is a really big one, I think, for early stage companies. What is growth, right? We talk about growth as, in many cases, just being top of funnel. And here there's just two graphs to show you. On the left, you can see a graph where I've grown signups by 20% month on month. That's really great growth. But at 5% convert at $240 ARR. It's a very good conversion rate, I think, to paid as well in the early days. On the right, I haven't grown up signups one bit. It's the same rate, same number of signups each month, but our free to paid conversion rate is increased by 20% month on month. So that's going to take us to 6%. And you can see the revenue impact is that much greater. So just think about all the different levers you've got to consider. What are you, and we've got some examples there, but cost per acquisition and website visitor sign-up might be one, but all the way down the bottom, the rate at which we can turn our sign-ups into leads, the rate at which we convert our leads, how much money they're spending. All of these levers are growth, and they achieve a bottom line impact, more revenue for your business if you're revenue focused, or better activation if you're pre-revenue, or whatever it may be. Don't think about the superficial vanity sign-ups, because your growth levers and your tool of your bag of tricks can only be so limited if all we're trying to do is grow signups. So what are we doing at Calendly right now? My day job today, we're focused on 4 things, and I think it'd be helpful to share some of it. I think it's interesting. The first is our PQL strategy. I touched on this before. How do we leverage the millions of signups that we have and turn a lot of them into leads? And what we do a lot of work around predictive analytics and looking at what they do in the product and trying to say, okay, they've invited a few teammates, they've connected Salesforce, they've done this action, that is likely to make them a great lead for our sales team, and then we start the conversation to increase the spend there. Second is personalization. I touched on the heterogeneousness of our product and the palm readers and the like. It's a blessing and a curse, and the fact that anyone who hits the Calendly website could be so different from anywhere in the world. We do a ton of personalization. We're using enrichment techniques and other things to try and get a sense of who they are and give them the right message. It's been very, very effective for us, and I'd recommend it for anyone who has a very general product, but it's a complete distraction if I'm building dev tools, for example. Everyone's pretty similar, arguably, at the early stage anyway. The third is self-serve excellence. So, at our heart, we're a self-serve business. Most of our acquisition, most of our revenue is still self-serve. We have to keep getting better. There's so many little things, the fact that I need to go and talk to someone to get volume discounting, and in the product there's lots of activation steps and things we can get better at. So we want to keep getting better and improving the way we do have our self-serve experience. And the last is the seamlessness between product-led growth and sales-led growth. So often they're at odds with each other. You sign up for Calendly, and you put your credit card in, and you have that experience, which is purely product-led. But then at some point, we'd like you to talk to sales, because we know that you want features that are behind our enterprise tier. And they're often competing early on, right? We want you to spend more money yourself and have a great product experience, but we're trying to sell to you while we're activating you. And how do we have that as a seamless, customer-centric experience? And that's a challenge we're dealing with at the moment. So I'll just leave you with 4 things to remember building out a business and thinking about growth in the early days. 1, prioritize distribution. I will absolutely die on a hill about this topic. It's without a doubt our biggest mistake in the early days and everyone's biggest mistake I talk to. 2, your growth model is unique to your product, market, and skills. Advice, anyone who sits down and says this is how you need to grow in a generic way, I wouldn't trust them. I would be questioning that. It's very specific to you, your business, your customers, your market, and time. It's very different. 5 years ago was a different world. Growth levers exist throughout the funnel, so I touched on that before. Don't think about growth as sign-ups. There's so many different things you can do. I've invested in a couple of great enterprise companies that have 5 customers. So if we're talking about growth for them, that's increasing the spend of those customers or acquiring 1 more customer. You have consumer businesses, which definitely isn't my strong suit, where sign-up growth just needs to be 1,000% to be anything meaningful. And don't be too scientific in the early days. Throwing mud, seeing what sticks, seeing what gives you a good feeling about growth is the way to go. We're not looking at statistically significant experiments. So I hope that little sneak peek into life, growth, growing a startup from the beginning, and then looking at a behemoth like Calendly and how we grow was helpful. Very happy to talk more. It's always hard to be specific with such an audience that it comes at this from so many perspectives. But it's definitely a topic I love talking about. Today at 12:30, I will be on the Q&A stage with James, and we can get a lot more specific on tactics and what we've learned and so on. And I've got a bunch of one-on-one growth sessions today and tomorrow as well. So very happy to connect with any founders and that out there. So thank you very much. I hope that was insightful. I think we're going to have some time for questions, a few questions. I think Andre's on his way out. But if you've got any questions, would love to hear from you. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let's see if we have questions. We have time for 1 or 2 questions maximum, and then the Q&A session will be live for you. So let's see if there are any questions around.
Hi, Darren.
Hello.
Quick one. What is the structure of your growth team? I mean the roles. Thank you.
Great question, and a very common question. So today we're split between marketing and product, and that suits a business like Calendly, where we're very much product-led, where a lot of our growth has to be tightly coupled. And then within that, we're split out into specific functions. So we have product marketing, we have demand generation. We have our lifecycle marketing. Lifecycle marketing is a part that I believe very strongly in. I think every business from day one should be thinking about lifecycle marketing. It's a very effective way to encourage users or customers to do what you want them to do. And we have our marketing website team. And then on the product side, we're split into the stages of the funnel. So product growth for us is onboarding and activation, conversion, retention, and expansion. So we have product managers across each of them. But we really try and keep ourselves together as a growth team, talking about different ideas, strategies, experiments to run across the board. And then the relevant owner would just execute them. If it happens to involve email, the lifecycle people would do it. If it's a conversion experiment, the conversion people would do it. But I think it's really important not to lose sight of a common growth objective. Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions?
We do have one over there up, and that will be the last question for this session, and then we'll have the Q&A session. We'll meet you there.
At 12:30, we can always chat more. Perfect. Hello.
Hi, Darren. You talked earlier about actually developing an audience before you develop a product.
Yep.
Can you give me an example of what you actually did?
Sure. Absolutely.
Thanks.
So at Hugo, that was our primary channel for growth. So the reason it was effective at Hugo is we're in the meeting space. It's so ripe with thought leadership. There's so much stuff to talk about with meetings. We all hate meetings. There's so many tactics and approaches and thoughts on how to improve meetings. There was lots we could do there. Now, what we learned was that you can organically sell your product to your audience, because that's why we're doing it, right? Most of us are here as marketers to acquire customers or make money. But you can't, you have to do it in a very natural way. If I'm starting to quickly build an audience of Twitter followers, LinkedIn followers, even just organic content, people who are searching for stuff, I can't from day one be pushing my product, because very quickly we've all got that bullshit detector, right? We know that these people are just selling to us and we all disengage. So we have to offer real value straight away. So what we started doing was we started writing content, really thoughtful content, and we built a pretty significant Twitter and LinkedIn audience, and then as we started getting more traffic, we started ranking for some keywords, and we were like #1 for meeting notes and some of these really big high intent keywords. And what that let us do was to start sprinkling in a little bit of product marketing through it. Another key way we built that audience for us at Hugo is with templates. So saying like, hey, if you want to run a great retrospective for your engineering team, here is the best template out there. It's very easy to organically then convert those people, because you can download it as a PDF or in Google Docs, or you can just jump onto Hugo and you get all these extra things too. So I think the message there was that, or is that, you should be thinking about building the audience and offering them value long before you're ready to sell to them. Because if you conflate them two, you're not going to be able to develop an audience very quickly when all you're trying to do is sell to them. You need their trust, you need the brand well before it comes time to take your side of the deal, which is selling to them in this case. Cool. All right, I think we're out of time, but thanks very much. It's really great to be here at the other end of the world, meeting so many incredible founders and investors and operators and the like. I'd very much love to continue the conversation with anyone. Feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn or Brella, the app, and I'll catch you all at 12:30 at the Q&A stage. Thanks so much.